Hi, everyone. Welcome to Pete's Epic Golf Podcast. Join golfer Pete as he interviews international and local golf experts and enthusiasts. Golfer Pete's guests are looking to share how his audience can improve their golf game by improving their mindset, skill set, and gear set. We ask our experts to share their practical tips on golf in one or more of these three core areas. Golfer Pete created his podcast as a resource for anyone who loves golf. Join Golfer Pete as he asks the questions we all need answers to in order to improve our golf game.
Well, I want to welcome two guests on the podcast today. I'm Golfer Pete, and I'm going to have them introduce you in just a second. But I wanted to give you why we have two people on here. Stephen Coen is a founder of a company, has a young boy, 1 year old. And so everybody that's a golfer knows when you get young kids, sometimes you put golf on hold. But we're going to talk to Karl Doller, who is a person that has gotten a challenge together. That's 100 people that want to break 100. Now, why is that important? Because when you're playing golf and beginning, you want to be comfortable with the people you're playing with so you can enjoy them and build a relationship and just have fun. So, Karl, I'm going to start off with you, and then we'll let Stephen introduce himself in just a second, and then we'll begin. So, Karl, please tell us who you are, a little bit about your background so our viewers can understand you.
Yeah, sure. Nice to be with you again, Pete. This is going to be fun. Well, as Pete mentioned, my name's Karl Doller, and I've been a personal golf coach now for 8 years, and I absolutely love helping people learn and love the game that has done so much for me personally. And so my 100 Breaking 100 project is I'm just looking for 100 golfers who have never broken 100 before and who are kind of in the mindset of, I've got a short amount of time I can practice. I can devote some time to this every week. What do I need to do that's going to be most important for me to be able to do that? And so that's what this is all about. And so Stephen and I, we never met until 2 minutes ago before this podcast began. And so he's going to tell me a little bit about himself and his game, and then we're going to go from there.
Yeah, Stephen, just introduce yourself and the company you're with, and really your position with golf, and then we'll begin with Karl helping you through this. Okay.
Absolutely. I'm super excited. And Karl, I love how you're trying to empower folks who want to get better but don't know how. Like that really speaks to me, given that at Sarah Health, that's one of our driving missions is to really help patients be able to use the time in between visits during physical and occupational therapy so that way they can become empowered, engaged in their own recovery. And so we partner with physical and occupational therapy companies like Physical. They're in Atlanta, as well as many others, to be able to give them a platform that texts their patients each and every day. And then it helps them to triage the responses and be able to now bill for new codes that came available as of last year. On the personal side, I've been a patient, so that's what got me excited about starting Sarah. As Pete said, I have a 13-month-old, and my golf history has been, I actually think I still have the same clubs I bought from a buddy of mine in college. I'm not going to date myself one way or the other, but let's just say I have not invested a lot of time and money into it. And why I'm really excited about this is it's starting to impact, especially on the business side, where I don't feel super comfortable up there on the tee. And is this thing going to end up all the way in the trees again? Am I going to be able to help out, for a charity scramble? And are we going to use more than two of my shots? And not that, you can't play that off, but I think there's being the CEO, I don't know. I think there's an expectation, whether it's self-imposed or not, that you can't be that bad at it. You can't be the worst one. And unfortunately, that's where I find myself in a lot of these rounds.
Gotcha.
Well, we appreciate you being transparent because that is real important. The mindset of a golfer is to really enjoy it, but it's hard to enjoy it if you're hitting it sideways every shot. So you want to be able to have some fun and build those relationships. So Karl, I'm going to turn it over to you because I know you have 3 important tips to give Steve, and I'm going to let you kind of guide this and give our viewers an idea of if you've got a young child at home and you're a busy business person and you really want to use or enjoy golf with business, there's certain things to do. So Karl, I'm going to give it over to you.
All right. Thanks, Pete. I appreciate that. Yeah, it's balancing all of that is tough. And, you can ask anyone who has played golf, who's tried to play golf. It's not the most intuitive or the easiest game to learn. It's kind of challenging and it can be frustrating. And so being able to focus your practice time and really knowing what to practice when you have the practice time. And then there's also some very building block foundational things that all golfers need to be able to do. And we can only progress onto the next step once we've got that foundation in place. And I think too often we watch golf on TV and those guys make it look so darn easy. And we expect maybe not to be like them, but at least to be somewhat close. But the reality is we're just not. We won't be, especially starting off. And so, taking it on a building block approach and being able to just layer things one on top of the other, I think that's a useful mental approach so that you can manage your expectations a little bit. And so, yeah, I've got 3 things that I'm going to share. One's going to be putting related, and the other 2 will be actually, hitting golf balls a little bit of a further distance related. So if that's okay, that's where we'll go.
That's great. I love it. Yeah. And if you need to ask, obviously, Stephen some questions and engage, because Stephen does have the best engagement communication platform because I'm part of it and that I've ever seen. So communication is important. So Karl, I'm going to let you go ahead and carry it from here.
That's perfect. You keep an eye on the time for us there, Pete. Make sure that we start track. All right. So early on in my career transition from being a corporate trainer to being in golf, I interviewed for a position as a coach in a after-school program that was opening up in the Phoenix area. And as part of that interview, the guy who was interviewing me, he asked, "What's the most important thing a golfer can do?" And I guess I hesitated for 2 seconds too long, and he jumped in and he said, "The most important thing a golfer can do is they can learn to control their golf ball." And if you can learn to control where the golf ball is going, it doesn't have to go a great distance necessarily, but if you can know where it's going to go before you hit it, then you really are ahead of the game, and you can learn to play well. So the first place we'll start is on the putting green, learning to control the distance that your ball rolls. And I start here with my students because I found that, they want to hit the ball off the tee and they want to hit good shots, but it's just as embarrassing if they're 20 feet from the hole and it takes them 5 putts to get in, or 3 sometimes, right? Because that can be embarrassing as well. So let me set up a picture in your mind on the putting green, and then I'll send over a link, Pete, so you can put a little link to a video of me doing this for the folks who are watching. But imagine that you walk onto the... Yeah, exactly, right? Yeah. Imagine you're walking onto your practice putting green and you find a part of the green that's relatively flat. And what you're going to do is you're going to put markers on the ground, each 1 step apart. And I use golf balls when I go out and do this, but you can stick tees in the ground. So you put 1 in, you take a step, and you put another 1 in the ground, and then you take another step and put another 1 in the ground. So, and just do that for 7 or 8 steps, so that you got 8 or 9 markers on the ground that you now have each 1 step apart from each other. And then you start at the first one and you just practice rolling the ball from that first marker so that it stops in line with the one that's 1 step away. And then you start at the same spot and then you try and get it to stop at 2 steps away. Once you're able to get it to stop 1 step away, you can move on to 2, and then to 3, and then to 4, and then to 5. The thing that I found with my students when I start them out is I have them putt to that first one or the second one, and there's no concept of how hard they have to roll the ball in order to make it stop at a specific distance away. But after just a short amount of time doing this little ladder exercise with them, or the steps drill, as I call it, very quickly they get a feel for, oh, if I'm only 3 steps away from the hole, I just have to hit it this hard to get it there. And they may not make them all, but now they only have a very short distance for a 2-putt rather than they're only 3 steps away from the hole, but they hit it 9 steps. And now they've got to come back, and then it just kind of ping pongs around until finally they're close enough to get it in. So, especially for someone like Stephen, who's got very little time to practice because he's so busy with other things, just doing this exercise 2 times a week for 10 minutes each, so just 20 minutes total practice time, will make a huge difference in your ability to control the golf ball on the green. And if you got a putting mat at home, even easier, because then you can do the same thing. You can just set up that practice station on your putting mat at home. So I don't know, Stephen, can you kind of picture that in your mind, of this ladder of 9 or 10 steps on the green and just putting to these distances?
You've got me thinking I might take some spray paint to my putting mat at home after this is where my head's going. But yeah. And would you work it and back? Like, would you, hit 1, 2, 3 to 10 and then back 10, 9, 8? Or do you see it better to do 1 to 10, stop, and then do 1 to 10 again?
Yeah, no, I'd go frontwards and backwards, and then I'd go random. So have someone there, or so you'll probably want to start just going, 1 through whatever to start off with. Mm-hmm. And I like to use the distance between them as a step rather than as a foot or a yard, because when I'm out playing, then I can kind of just nonchalantly step it off. No one really needs to know what I'm doing. They can just, they think I'm reading my putt. But as part of that, I'm measuring the distance that I am from the hole. So I've got a baseline that I can then judge what I'm about to putt, right? So I like to use steps as my guide. But yeah, I start at and just go in sequence, forwards and backwards, and then you can go random. Have someone that you with just call out, or just think of a number and go like that.
Carl,
that makes a ton of sense. And I was gonna say, as I'm applying it to even my own game, the feeling of being within a couple feet and be like, God, that's so close, right? And just like that camaraderie that comes from a barely missed putt is a very different feeling than a complete overshot by 10 yards, which has happened.
No, it's common, and it really is just because our hands are not educated enough to know how hard to hit that thing, and so that's all we're trying to do, is just educate our brain and our hands to know how much energy to put into that golf ball.
And Karl, if you just throw in, when I pick in charity events, I always pick the 2 best putters I can find. So it's amazing because, people don't spend that time on the green, and putting is such that it really bleeds into the rest part of your game. You make a putt in a charity event, you're a hero, and people are high-fiving, you feel so good. But I see very few people spend the necessary time with the speed, because you're right. They run it 8 feet by. They don't tell you anything, because if you don't have the right speed, it's not going to break like it should. So I love that point. So I just think that's absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, and anyone who's listening, who's a new or struggling golfer, go and do that. Just twice a week, 10 minutes at a time. You'll be amazed at how quickly you're able to improve your speed control while you're putting. All right, so the next thing has to do with being able to understand where the golf, this we're talking full swing now, or bigger swing, where the golf club is touching the ground in the downswing, right? So we call that the low point of the golf swing. It's the point where the club is on the downswing and it's approaching the golf ball on the ground. And where's it going to be the actual lowest? And usually that golf club, what we'd like to see with our irons and our wedges, is that low point is actually slightly lower than where the ball is resting on the grass. And that's where that little divot comes from, where we just brush the grass with the golf club. One error that I've seen, and I haven't asked Steve yet about his errors with his hitting, but one area I see a lot is that my students, they don't know where that club is going to hit the ground. And so they end up hitting behind the ball a lot because they're not they don't know exactly where that club is going to be. But if we can improve your ability to not hit the ground first and to actually hit the ball first, or as close as we can get it to hit the ball first and then the club brushing the top of the grass, this is a huge skill differentiator between folks who play pretty good golf and folks who struggle, is being able to control the low point. And so the place I would recommend beginning for all new golfers, and Stephen, you can put yourself in their shoes as well, is learning to make like half length or even a quarter length backswing and forward swings with a 7-iron or an 8-iron, and get very comfortable letting that club brush into the grass with a little bit of follow through. And that would be the third tip, is to learn to understand where you want to be and get a feel for where you want the follow through to be. And we'll talk about that in just a minute. But if you can imagine yourself there in your golf posture, Stephen, and you're just making a backswing where you stop the backswing when your lead arm, which would be your left arm if you're righty, would be parallel to the ground. And then you're going to make a downswing where the club touches the ground, and you're going to finish when both arms are straight out in front of you, parallel to the ground, keeping your arms as straight as you can without feeling like you're just locking them out. All right. So you're making straight arm backswings and straight arm forward swings, learning to brush the club head through the grass. Not letting it dig into the grass or miss the grass altogether. So you want to be able to do straight arms back, straight arms through, and get some good turf interaction with that club head.
So you're talking with a 7 and 8 iron, Karl?
Yeah, I wouldn't go anything longer than that for now. I find that a 7 or 8 iron is good. And the result that you're going for when you're making these short arms back swings and the straight arms back, straight arms through, just these short swings, you're looking for a shot that goes relatively straight out in front of you, that maybe goes between 50 and 70 yards. Mm-hmm. And if you can do that consistently, then when we add a little bit of movement in the backswing and a little bit of a bigger follow through, now you can get that same club to go maybe 100 yards or 110 yards. And really, if you can hit a 7-iron or an 8-iron relatively straight in front of you at 110 yards, then you can play good golf. Good meaning you'll break 100. Assuming you do my putting drill, you'll break 100, and you won't feel like you're hunting for golf balls all day, because they'll just be straight in front of you. That's the build. And when we go to longer clubs like fairway woods or drivers, for the tee shot, it's going to be the same foundation. We're going to still do we're going to start with straight arms back, straight arms through. We're just making short swings and hitting the ball off the tee, and then build up from there. But it starts with being able to do it with a 7-iron or an 8-iron.
Stephen, your thought?
So for me, I'm not locking out my arms, but it's I don't know. It's a not locking them out, but getting them as straight as possible without pushing that full lock out. Right. And I think more importantly, it's if I'm out there with my 8, which I think if I full swing, maybe I'm at 140, 150, right. But mentally modeling, okay, 70 is the goal. That's how I know I'm doing it correctly. And then slowly bring in some more movement into the swing as I can very reliably hit it, within how many degrees of error are we talking, right? So if I'm thinking of, okay, now I'm ready to progress this a little bit, am I looking for, a 5-degree window? Am I looking for a 10-degree window? At what point would you say that most likely a golfer like me is ready to potentially progress to adding a little more oomph to it?
A little bit extra? Yeah. The way that I would judge that would be on the contact rather than on, I don't know do you hit on a launch monitor much at all, or do you have access to numbers? I don't know if you've done that. I wouldn't be too worried yet about those type of numbers just for now. I'd be more interested in if you could make the little punch shot, right? And you feel like you're hitting the ball first and the ball's going out in front of you, It might go 100 yards. That's fine too, but 70 is kind of a good number. Then once you're comfortable with that, then we can start adding a little bit of speed. And the speed would probably be coming, or the more would be coming through impact into the follow through, and not so much on the backswing just yet.
Got it. So it just so I can, I can put it in my mind, right?
Yep.
Is there like a consistent sound I might be looking for as well? Like, hearing that sound over and over and over again is a good signal, outside of the, it being straight, which is going to be fantastic in and of itself.
Right.
What other data points, if you, I'm a big data guy. So like what other data points should I be considering?
Yeah. So, if you've hit a good chip before, or a good little pitch shot, there's that distinctive click sound that you get when the ball hits the face of the club before it brushes the ground. And you'll feel this in your hands as well as you'll hear it. But if there's any sensation of ground first, then ball, the sound off the club is going to be muted. You're not going to hear that nice click sound, and you're going to feel it in your hands that club is dug into the ground just a little bit. I'm trying to think of anything else that you'd notice, but definitely, I mean, even with impact, there is a small window of error that we can get away with. We don't have to be spot on perfect every time. There is a little margin of error with impact that we can actually get good shots. And then let me just elaborate a little bit on that follow through position and one thing to be aware of. So, because very often when we think golf swing and we think movement, the question comes up, okay, where's my body weight at? Where am I? Especially if you are like into numbers and you've done some research into like force plates and other stuff like that, is where am I supposed to be? And for someone who's having a tough time shooting in the 90s regularly, just think of your weight being as far forward throughout the entire process as you can comfortably get it. Yes, we understand that the weight is going to shift a little bit onto the trail side and then go back to the lead side. But the golf swing is over so fast that if we're mentally trying to do that at your skill level, it's going to be very difficult to sync it all up. So at address position, if you think of your body weight being slightly favored on that lead leg, maybe 60% rather than 50-50. And then as you turn and your arms stay straight, try and keep that weight centered rather than let the weight shift. But then through impact and into follow through, you want to feel like all of you is now up on that lead leg and the buttons on your shirt are pointing up to the sky as you're keeping your arms straight. You don't have any sense through impact and beyond that your chest or your shoulders are pointing towards the ground. They're going to be pointing upwards so that you can then start to learn how to create the speed that you're going to look for. So if you go into YouTube, or you just imagine someone in their follow through with their arms straight in front of them, the worst golfers, and you'll see this on the driving range, the worst golfers into their follow through are the ones that have the buttons on their shirt pointing towards the ground. Mm-hmm. The best golfers are going to be the ones that have their chest slightly pointing up to the sky and their arms straight out in front of them, right? Because they're now allowing their body to turn back towards the target, and they're able to get their club head to the butt of the club to move up and around rather than just around. And so that's an important part of the follow through. And you might think like, why are we talking about grip and aim and other stuff? Like, the most important thing is to learn to hit the ground in the right spot, right? And we're going to learn to hit the ground after we hit the golf ball, right? And that's why we make the straight arm swings, and we learn where that club wants to brush against the ground, and then we know where the golf ball has to go. And then understanding how to get into the follow through with a slightly backward bending of the shoulders. I work a lot inside of an app called sportsbox.ai, and it's a 3D motion measurement tool. And that's what the motion measurement tells us about how the best players in the world are playing golf, is through impact. Their chest and their shoulders aren't looking down at the golf ball. They've already started to move into a backward bend with their arms straight out in front. So straight arms back, straight arms through. And if you hold that follow through position, you're going to feel like your buttons on your shirt are pointing a little to the sky, and all your weight is going to be on that front leg. That'll be a good exercise to work on.
Yeah, you're muted, Stephen. So I'll talk while you get that thing off mute. Carl, I see it all the time in our club. Most of the beginners, they pull that driver out and they just try to crush it as far, and it goes 50 yards sideways. And I don't know too many people can get par or bogey out of the woods. So if you're in the woods, your hole's over with, your confidence is low. I love the idea that you focus on the putting, because everybody, if you're a good putter, you're going to be asked to be in charities, and you're going to get so many high fives when you don't ram it, 50 feet by, or just have no concept of speed. And I love 7-iron, the idea of just, brushing the grass and not swinging that big stick, because the hardest one to hit is a driver. I mean, there's so much can go wrong in a swing with a driver. So, Stephen, I want to let you comment, because I know you were.
Yeah, the front foot advice is also like that's really, really sticking for me as someone who played baseball growing up. Is always back leg weight, right? Weight on the back leg, weight on the back leg, weight on the back leg. And so knowing that there needs to be this 60-40 with 60 going to the front, I'm excited for those two changes to be able to put those into practice, very, very quickly and easily, right? With the straight arm swings, and then also being more on the front foot and trying to get to that 60-40, which I think will take some time to get to, but knowing in my mind that that's what I'm shooting for is extremely helpful and tangible. Even it feels that way.
Yeah, and by having the goal of hitting it, just that 70 yards out, it's not overwhelming. I did this. I have a lesson series for absolute beginners, and that's where I start them off with. And I'm putting together the next one, which is beginner to better. And we take that same basic swing that they're hitting 70 yards with their 7-iron or their 8-iron, and we just change clubs. And with the hybrid, you could be up to like 120 or 130, and with the 3-iron, the 3-wood, you might be at 170 or 180. And depending on what tees you're playing and where you're at, just by having a swing that's no bigger than straight arms back, relatively straight arms through, hitting at 180 off the tee, pretty straight, 2 shots, and you're pretty close on most par 4s when that's done, and you're not losing golf balls right and left. You might, you just have to tell people you're playing with, hey, I'm still learning, and so I don't have a very big swing, and I don't hit it very far, but I'm pretty straight and I play fast. I'm not going to hold you up, right? And they'll be happy to play with you if that's the case. But yeah, those are the things I'd start any new player off. Go spend some time on the putting green, and then learn how to make these punch shots or these short shots, hitting the ball first, then the ground. It'll help you out a ton.
Well, if I could just comment too on that, Carl, I've been in golf for 50 years, and, to understand those 3 focuses for a beginner is absolutely light years ahead of most that do it, because they bring the big stick out. They want to see if they can crush it like the guys on the tour, and that thing goes sideways. But if you really understand the 80-20 rule, like 80% of your time needs to be put in the efforts of your golf swing. I love the idea of lagging and getting your speed, and that 7-8-iron brushing the grass. And then you can graduate, because it's not a game of distance. Even though distance is big on the tour, we're not playing for the tour. And there was your fellow South African, Gary Player, had a famous quote. He said, if the driver's not going for you, go to another stick, like hit a 3, hit a hybrid. You don't always have to hit the driver, because not many people are going to be able to get up and down from 50 yards in the woods. So I love those. I really do. And I think it really helps. Stephen, now, for your confidence, we're going to put some links in the show notes that you'll be able to use. But those 3 tips how do you feel about your game and your confidence going forward with at least having a strategic plan for that? What's your thoughts?
I mean, it's the same. It's the same reason why I pay for a coach for working out. Why I go to physical therapy myself. Right? This time with Karl has been, hey, don't just randomly throw an hour away. Here are 3 20-minute segments that you can do to get better, faster, quicker. And so I feel like I have a game plan coming out of this that's not throwing darts at the board, right? But instead is a progressive approach that I can take to be able to get better. And sure, maybe for the next however many months, and here in Kansas City, it's we got about another 2 or 3 months of golfing, maybe.
Right.
Yeah, that's about it of golf left, right? But even if for the next 6 to 12 months at a charity scramble, it's, hey, you're not going to be using many of my drives and can laugh that off, but we use a lot of my putts and a lot of my approach shots. People could be pretty happy about that. So I guess I'm almost like mentally picturing that scenario, and it's a much better one than what exists today.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I totally love it. Karl, I appreciate you really working with a segment of golfers that I think are forgotten. Everybody likes to work with the 5 handicapper, the 7 handicapper, the 15, but that beginner really is struggling with priorities. What do they do? This game of golf is not easy. I've been playing for 50 years. I'm still trying to figure it out. So it's not like you do one thing and you got the game figured out. So
and another challenge that the new golfers have is that YouTube is just, or wherever they go for their information on the internet, there's just so many voices saying different things, not necessarily wrong things, but maybe wrong for that person because of where they're at and what they're going to struggle with personally. And so just knowing which piece of starting advice to latch onto, that can be a challenge too. Hopefully we can help some of the folks who are new or struggling and give them some direction to break 100 and never get there again, right? Just keep getting better.
Well, I tell you, Karl, I want to thank you because for Stephen, when he comes to Atlanta, we can drag one of the golfers from physical, Dr. Ryan. We can put him on the golf course because it's funny. I've had him in a captain's choice not too long ago. So putting is so critical and chipping is, and to have somebody that understands what you just covered with him really makes the round so much more enjoyable. And I think that, being able to be outdoors and then you can tell your company, yeah, I was working today. Now you don't have to say where you were working. We'll keep that one a little bit of a secret, but
right,
you're out there enjoying yourself and being out there with people where you can tie your golf and your business together. I think that's a win-win. And so Stephen, I'm going to let you finish out. And then I'm going to go to Karl. Just your closing comments, your thoughts, your takeaway.
Yeah, the couple things I can't wait to put into practice are the putting exercise, the straight arm, and then also the weight balance and shifting my weight. And I just really appreciate this programmatic approach to it that's targeting 3 key areas of the game and in a doable time frame as well, right? I mean, I could see myself being able to get 45 minutes to an hour a couple times a week and be able to, and now feeling like it's not going to be just chance time, that there is a solid chance, or there's a solid likelihood of a strong return on investment of that time. So not just hacking away and hoping. So for that, Karl, I am extremely appreciative of the time and advice, and I can't wait to play together.
No, that'll be so much fun. I look forward to it as well.
Well, thank you, Karl, and thank you, Stephen, for giving us that insight into those beginners' journey, because the more beginners that begin, the game grows. And that's what we shoot for when we're in the golf business. We love to see it grow. So I want to thank our viewers for really kind of tuning into this unique setup. And we'll put the 3 tips in the show notes along with some other documented thing. And then we're going to also put Steven's company in there, because I tell you what, when I first met him, I was like, sign me up. And I was already in the place. So, but I thought engagement is so important. And I love getting the texts and keeping my physical therapist informed on my progress and doing it in a timely manner. So awesome. We thank you both, and we wish you the best, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks, Pete.
Thank you.